Welcome to the Astro Psyche. This is your astrology forecast for November of 2025. And I'm really excited to share the astrology of this month with you. Some of the core themes that feel very alive for me that we'll talk about this month are gaining closure on a healing process that you've been working on for some time. I think, especially earlier in the month, there is this wrapping up and maybe sense of completion or closure or getting a feeling of traction around something that you've been trying to tend to for some time. There's also a theme this month of seeking to unburden yourself and being able to do so. That also connects into another theme this month of gaining a greater sense of insight or clarity, and that may also involve some enthusiastic action as well. That's very connected to this new awareness, new insight, clarity of insight that's happening this month. My name is Shawna McGrath. I'm a depth psychotherapist and an astrologer, and it's such an honor to be here with you, to share this space with you, and to share the astrology that's happening with you at this time. So, I'm going to go into each theme, each aspect in detail, but at the front here, I wanted to give you a list of the transits that we're going to talk about. So this is a table of contents, if you will. So we'll talk about the sun being in Scorpio and Sagittarius this month. So the sun is our conscious focus on continuing to focus on Scorpio themes of emotional bonds, and then Sagittarius themes of finding new possibilities. We'll also talk about the aspects that are being created that connect in with the Jupiter-Chiron-Pluto T-square. And that has been softly, gently approaching, starting to move more fully into the foreground since August of 2025. It'll go through September of 2026. And there's some aspects that are connecting into it. This Jupiter-Chiron-Pluto T-square is most alive in the first half of the month. And this is a theme of gaining closure on the healing process that I was talking about. So we'll talk more about that in a moment. We'll also talk about Uranus moving back into Taurus. And so this is really important because this completes Uranus's stay in Taurus for the next 80-ish years or so. So we'll definitely talk about that happening in November. And also with Uranus, Uranus will be making a sextile to Neptune. Now, this is another long-term transit that has been going on for about 7 years or so. And it is exact this month. So it's very alive, it's very vibrant, its symbolism can be experienced more fully or more directly. So we're definitely going to talk about that and some of the more minor aspects that are connecting in to Uranus and Neptune. Actually, let me say some of the symbolism around this aspect is unbinding yourself from burdens, opportunities to do that. This is a more subtle aspect. So it's not as though there are things that are being required of you, but it is an opportunity that we can connect in with. And so this aspect is also connected in with the Mercury-Mars conjunction that we're going to talk about that's very alive this month as well. So there's this theme around clarity, decisive action, and strategic innovation, and that opening up new possibilities for you. Let's see, what else is on my notes here? So yes, Mercury retrograde also is happening this month. We're definitely going to talk about that. Mercury retrograde are always these times of contemplation, deep reflection, and allowing ourselves to process and emotionally, mentally digest so that we can continue to move forward. Mercury conjunct Mars is a strong theme with this Mercury retrograde as well. So we're definitely going to talk about that. And other things that are happening, we have a full moon in Taurus on November 5th and a new moon in Scorpio on November 19th. So a lot happening as always throughout the month. And I invite you to um, listen wherever you are, whenever you are, and to notice what comes up for you as I'm sharing this, what connects in, what resonates. Okay, so the sun has been in Scorpio since October 22nd. It'll be there until November 21st. And we track the sun so much because it is what we're collectively consciously focused on. So it's this spotlight of focus. It pulls the focus. And so the first half of the month, we are focused on deeper meaning, deep emotional bonding, resources, whether that is physical, mental, or emotional resources. And Sun in Scorpio also has this theme of deepening into your inner world, your inner experiences. Often there's a tone of deepening more into your emotional world, and I think that can vary for everyone how that works. Sometimes it is deepening more into your thought process. Thoughts and feelings are interconnected for most folks. And so this first half of the month, there is this focus on all of these themes, and I encourage you to do what you wish with that energy. That's something that is happening whether or not we engage with it. And also, when the sun is in Scorpio, it's a beautiful time to go deep with yourself, to contemplate, to introspect. We have several themes with that this month. And there is a natural flow of energy that allows us to consciously focus on exploring, researching, and discovering the ways that we can emotionally bond with other people and how that works for us too. So, uh, how are our emotional bonds and what does that look like and what does that feel like? Sun in Scorpio can also speak to the need for emotional safety to go deep. And so that may be something that, so of course, since the sun has been in Scorpio since October 22nd, all of these themes may be knocking around in your mind. And so this is just this continued process that we're going through with this. And because we have the new moon happening in Scorpio, there's also this planting of new seeds around these themes as well. So, November 21st, the sun shifts from Scorpio into Sagittarius. And I find that this is one of the most dramatic contrasts when we go from one sign to another, from Scorpio to Sagittarius. I don't know if this is the case for you, but for me, it feels very striking. There's such a different emotional tone. Whereas Scorpio, there is a focus on depth and inwardness and connection. There's a certain intensity to Scorpio as well. Scorpio has this sort of grit to it. Whereas Sagittarius is about expanding out. Well, actually, do I want to say that? I think Sagittarius can also be expanding inward, as in expanding the mind or expanding the consciousness. So what the feeling that I'm want to communicate actually is uh, Scorpio, Sun in Scorpio, to me feels like focusing on the root or the fine point of something, getting to the origin point, getting to the essence of it, getting to what's real. Whereas Sun in Sagittarius is about elaborating and expanding and finding more and creating more space and exploring and what else is here. So, whereas Sun in Scorpio, the conscious focus in general is what's at the bottom of this? What is underneath this? Where's this going? Following the thread. In contrast, the Sun in Sagittarius is asking, what else is there? What else exists? Where can I find more? How can I experience more? How do these things fit together? There's a sense of exploration and novelty and a philosophicalness about the Sun in Sagittarius, all other things considered equal. And so this is sometimes can be experienced as a feeling of intenseness in early November to more of a feeling of just openness and expansion and a lighter kind of energy. I think, especially because of the contrast between these two signs. So, um, as far as working with the Sun in Sagittarius energy, so this goes from November 21st to December 21st every year. We can work with this energy at that time by consciously focusing on exploring new ideas, on expanding our consciousness, on asking what else. Well, actually, let me pause that because I think it actually depends on your situation and what you want to gain from Jupiter. And I'm saying that because if a person is already feeling a sense of overwhelm or too muchness, I think there's going to be a different engagement with the Sun in Sagittarius. Um, so if you're wanting to create more space and buoyancy and lightness and exploration in your life, those are things that you're going to seek out when the Sun is in Sagittarius. Now, if you're feeling overwhelmed, like many of us are for a variety of different reasons, um, I think the Sun in Sagittarius can be worked with in a different way, where it's less about seeking more and adding more and gaining more, though, that might be a part of the process for you. It's less about that, though, and it's more about connecting what you already have and looking at the bigger picture, connecting the dots, connecting the themes. Sometimes if a person is already, if they already have a large amount of either Sagittarius or Jupiter or even Neptune in their chart, a common experience for those folks is to feel like there's a lot happening and a sense of either overwhelm or chaos or not knowing what to do with everything that is there. And so the Sun in Sagittarius can actually help us to uh, pull up and out and back to see the forest, as they say, to see the bigger picture. And one thing that the Sun in Sagittarius is really great for is connecting the dots and seeing themes and seeing how things actually connect together in a creative way when we pull back and really look at that broader picture. Also, of course, happy birthday to my Sagittarius people. Happy birthday to my Scorpio people. Wishing you many happy returns. Okay, so let's move on to the next aspects, the next theme, the next cluster of aspects involving this Jupiter-Chiron-Pluto T-square. Now, this is happening from August 2025 into September of 26. It's spanning across signs. So we're really just looking at when the planets are within a certain degree orb of being in this contact together. And So we already know that I'm sharing the screen for those of you that are able to see it. And so we already know that Jupiter is this function that's very Sagittarius-like. Jupiter is the planet of expansion and growth and more, wanting more, needing more, exploring more, expanding the outer world or the inner world. And Jupiter has this theme of philosophy, exploring other traditions or other cultures. Jupiter tends to speak to interests in anthropology, religion, spirituality, these kinds of studies, um, and the delight in exploring new things in general. Um, so Jupiter tends to make things bigger, more bold. There's a also maybe to like a dramatic flair, I think, to Jupiter sometimes. So we already know that we've talked about over time that Jupiter is making this square to Chiron here. And we can see in the chart that Jupiter at the beginning of the month is at 24 degrees of Cancer, making this very close square to the comet planetary body called Chiron at 24 degrees of Aries. So this is really close. This is really hot. While it's been happening over the last 6 months or so, it's very alive right now. We would say it's in the peak of intensity. And so Chiron is the body that represents healing, the the tonic that is both uh, that both has a potential for being a healing balm or a medicine as well as a poison that causes harm. It's this quality of the wound as well as the healing, um, the experience of vulnerability and hurting and tenderness, and then how we care for those parts of ourselves that are tender and have been wounded or bruised or just simply needing attention in order to fully flourish. And so this square to Jupiter can mean a couple of different things. Um, I think there's a potential here for bringing some healing to your psyche, to your life, by exploring what else is possible, by looking at things more philosophically or spiritually or religiously, depending on your belief system. There is some healing around anything that is tender or delicate for you that is possibly activated by Jupiterian things, which are um, cultivating a sense of support and optimism and hope and seeking out support. Jupiter is also a symbol of people who are able to help you, people who are able to be supportive to you, people that are actually literally in a position of being ready, willing, and able to offer support to you. And so there's something here around seeking support or support being received, support being offered. Um, it really depends on your makeup, how this manifests for you. I think also there is, yeah, I'm also wondering if there's a more subtle aspect to your healing process. So whether this is mental, physical, or emotional, all of these things are connected. Uh, our thoughts, our emotions, our mind, and our physical body, we are now relearning, remembering that everything is impacted, that it's this entire system that we experience. A great example of that is how when we have certain feelings, sometimes those can be somaticized in the body from something like a tension headache or a stomach ache or um, uh, a, a certain symptom. And we can actually, so I think this is part of the Jupiter, we can actually take this farther. And this is something that I think about often, is that we we already know that stress has an impact on our body, that stress will manifest physically in the body. We know that anxiety can manifest physically in the body. We know that depression can manifest physically in the body. And we could take this even more metaphysically. And you may already be tracking this and paying attention to this in your own life. Um, I'm thinking of a book that I first started reading when I was in my yoga teacher training many years ago, and it blew my mind. The title is not coming into my mind at this moment. Hopefully, it will come in, and I'll remember it. It was not the Louise Hayes book, but it was a similar book where it was describing how our body is a symbolic representation of our psyche, and that we can look at our physical symptoms symbolically to understand what is happening in our mind and our life and our psyche. So, for example, if you had carpal tunnel in your arms, we could say, like, yes, that's from any type of repetitive movement. Often that's from typing, but things like that can also happen to baristas or folks that work in the service industry or hospitality industry, or anything where, frankly, any movement, whether it's the arms or anything like that, any repetitive movement that we do over and over again is going to have an impact. So we could say, ah, yes, that's what's causing it. And also, it may be interesting to look at what is happening with the arms, the hands from a symbolic level. So, do you feel like you are able to have an impact in your life? Are you able to create? Are you able to do things? Are you able to express yourself? The arms, the hands, especially being connected to Mercury, the planet of self expression. And we use our hands and our arms to grasp things, to do things, to create things. So that's the more archetypal symbolism. The more personal symbolism is, how is this, in this example, how is this carpal tunnel impacting your life? Is it preventing you from doing things, and what's that like for you? Is it preventing you from doing things that you actually don't want to do? And so it is your feeling of not wanting to do something, for example, being manifested in the body in some way. So this is I'm realizing a um, massive digression, but I'm sharing this with you because this is what's coming through for me at this moment, as this is possibly a component of how Jupiter square Chiron and Pluto is coming in, because we can take the symbolism even farther. We can take it even more symbolic. We can take it even more metaphysically, and we can really be open, Jupiter, to a more spiritual, religious, philosophical. And when I say religious, like, I'm thinking like um, it doesn't have to be organized religion. It's like the religious function, the spiritual function, where you feel a sense of meaning, and it's this inner experience that has a transformative impact for you. And so I'm going to share the chart again here, come back from my digression. So, uh, yeah, I think another way this could manifest is taking your healing journey farther. Again, Jupiter is about taking things farther, more, pushing the edge, pushing the boundary, seeing what else is possible. Now, a part of why I'm talking about this month is, number one, because the aspect between Jupiter and Chiron, this square, is so close. It's within the same degree, and it's been close for a while. And also, transiting Venus is here at 23 degrees of Libra. And so it's my dog Leo is snoring. I don't know if you can hear that. If so, I apologize. His snore is a little loud. So Venus is connecting in to both Chiron, making an opposition to Chiron. It's also making a square to Jupiter. And so this is, we would call this what's called a T square. And we're going to bring in Pluto in a moment, but I want to speak to Venus first. So Venus is having its own interaction, its own experience with both Chiron and Jupiter, and it is also awakening and enlivening and creating a third thing with this Jupiter-Chiron square. And this is how the transits work. So we have these long-term, year-long transits, for example, of Jupiter square Chiron, and it's always happening, it's still there. And then when a planet like Venus comes in, it awakens, enlivens, and brings a specific kind of flavor to the aspect, and it becomes more apparent to us. So, because this is Venus, well, actually, hang on. So, this month, there might be this awakening, enlivening of your healing, of actually, you know what? I want to also say Jupiter Chiron could also manifest as teaching or learning or study, experimenting. Chiron was not just a physician and an astrologer, he was also a mentor, and he helped others become more of what they were already becoming. So he was an advocate of the multitude of arts and studies that anyone could do. Uh, and Jupiter is also traditionally a symbol of the teacher or the one that um, imparts wisdom or ideas. And so that may be a bit of how this is manifesting for you. Maybe there's something that you've been learning or wanting to learn or wanting to study. It might be more traditional studies. It might be just your own curriculum that you're creating for yourself. Oftentimes, when we have Chiron making an aspect to our birth chart, we are drawn to study something that is specifically connected to our healing journey. And so Venus coming in here tells us that there is something relational that's activating these themes that we've been talking about, the healing or the study. There's something relational, there's something maybe involving beauty or aesthetics or relational dynamics. Traditionally, Venus is a symbol of feminine or femme or women, any sort of women or femme or feminine type of person or presenting person, or the things that we socially assign as feminine in some way. So that the quality of what you identify with or not as feminine, or even like bringing up that question of what does that even mean as a social construct. And it could also be working out some relational dynamics, some things that you've been working on. I think that's a big part of what I'm seeing here is that this has already been happening. And so this is not brand new. This is, I don't know, it might feel brand new or out of the blue, but oftentimes when we reflect back, we can see the building up to this theme. And so this is really, the Venus component of this is really mostly within the first part of the month. So um, I think we talked in the October monthly about Venus connecting in with Jupiter and Chiron here. You might be tired of me talking about Jupiter and Chiron. I hope not. But it feels important to me. And so Venus began this transit October 21st was when it just softly started approaching, when Venus was maybe at about 10 degrees of Libra. And it's been slowly moving forward day by day, and it will get really hot, really exact the first week of November. And then it'll still be active, but it'll be more of this soft, waning, dissipating, releasing kind of energy as Venus moves forward. And then I would say around November 14th is when there's a sense of completion around whatever healing, studies, whatever you're processing that involve that Jupiter Chiron theme. That's when Venus gets to about 10 degrees of Scorpio, so it's farther away out of the orb of influence. Now, also, so we're going to stay with this theme for a moment here. Um, Jupiter is getting closer to making an opposition to Pluto. Now, it's really soft, it's really subtle right now, it's just getting going, and Jupiter is going to retrograde back eventually. So as we go forward in months, Jupiter's going to eventually retrograde back to 15 degrees um, into like March and April of 2026. So it's going to soften, but right now, Jupiter is pretty close at 24 degrees, opposite Pluto at 1 degree of Aquarius. And so there is this subtle intensity that's infused with Jupiter and the Jupiter Chiron square. Pluto tends to intensify, deepen, and bring into our awareness the potential for looking at unconscious material. Unconscious material, things that have been hidden, things that have been repressed, things that have been marginalized, things that we consider taboo. And so it's gentle, it's soft, but there might be something plutonic about whatever it is they're healing. There might be, and often this is the case, often our healing process works with the unconscious. But there's something that also might involve hidden, repressed, or something that's considered taboo in some way that might be getting worked out here. And this is especially the case because Venus will be making a close square to Pluto this month. And so when we look at the chart, we actually have this um, complete grand cross that's happening between Venus, Chiron, Jupiter, and Pluto. And I want to speak to the Venus Pluto just for a moment here. So, Venus will make a square to Pluto from October 30th. So once it's at about 21 degrees of Libra, it's going to get closer and closer. So as it gets closer, there's this building of exploring unconscious relationship dynamics, exploring your uh, experience of desire, of the erotic, of what delights you, what feels beautiful, um, that may be relational, as in with a literal person. It might be more of how you experience yourself or the world, or how you experience being around other people. So this gets really intense, really tight, this Venus square Pluto, also the first week of November. And then it starts to soften and cool. I would say once we get to, so it's still happening through to November 15th. But I would say once we get into like November 11th and 12th, it starts to really soften and dissipate. And there's this wrapping up sort of energy once Venus gets to about 11 degrees of Scorpio. And so when I'm looking at this Venus square Pluto here, I'm thinking about the podcast that I made not too long ago about transits as initiatory experiences, and I think some transits can feel more like an initiation than others. Venus to Pluto feels very initiatory to me because Venus in ancient astrology in ancient Babylonia was connected with the goddess Inanna. And a part of one of Inanna's core myths is that she goes down into the underworld, has a really intense, exposing, vulnerable experience, and then she comes back up to the upper world. This feels very Venus Pluto because Pluto is about the unconscious, the underworld, these experiences of an underworld journey. Pluto is a symbol of the metaphorical death rebirth process. So there's something that is revealed, something that is sometimes composted or extracted, like a poison being extracted. And this involves your relational function or your connection to beauty or aesthetics. Sometimes Venus can also connect in with our sense of self, how we feel valuable or not, and what that's like for us. So, really, really strong, potent healing energy at the beginning of this month, uh, from November 1st to November 15th. And I think part of the way of engaging with this in a way that can feel life-giving, productive, affirming is to look at things symbolically and to notice where you're feeling called or compelled to pay attention to something, where it feels like something feels vulnerable or tender or just sort of hurts. Um, these are the places to give a little more care and attention and curiosity. And I think that another component of Venus Pluto is working with experiences of jealousy or manipulation or possessiveness or control or feeling possessed by a feeling, those kinds of states. When something like that comes up, it can be really important to slow down and to get curious and to wonder, okay, what is happening here? And to, as best as we can, create some space for that feeling to exist and to unfurl. Because when we do that, there tends to be uh, things tend to shift and change and the energy moves. And Pluto really likes it when we allow the energy to move and transform. Okay, so that's what I have to say about that. I realized that was a lot, and I didn't realize all of that was going to come through. So I'm really curious how that sits with you, what's coming up for you now, and yeah, I wonder how that is for you to hear that. Okay, so next we're going to talk about Uranus. So Uranus is doing a couple of things. It is moving back into Taurus on November 9th, and it's actually going to be in Taurus for a while. It's going to be in Taurus until April next year, April 27th of 2026. And during that time, it will retrograde all the way back to 27 degrees of Taurus. So it's not going to go terribly far back into Taurus, but it is going to dip back in. And this feels important to name because if you are in a Uranus transit, this is just telling us that you're getting an extra dosage of Uranus here. And there's this, whenever a planet goes retrograde, I like to think of it as it's simply spending more time there, and we get to experience it more. We get to experience it more deeply and more thoroughly. And so Uranus is this planet overall that symbolizes innovation, uh, releasing binds or burdens or bondage, or releasing especially social expectation, or even just questioning social expectation. Like Jupiter, Uranus also has a love for novelty and trying new things. And Uranus has a certain contrarian kind of quality to it. Folks that have a strong Uranus in their birth chart tend to get really activated when they're told what they have to do, or that they have to do something like everyone else. For all of us, wherever Uranus is, it is this psychological function of choice and autonomy and finding our own path forward. And we often grow more, well, I think we must mature into our Uranus over time, whether that is going along with what's expected of you and then suddenly realizing, or maybe not so suddenly realizing, that uh, you've been doing things for other people and you want to start doing things for yourself. Or maybe for a Uranus person that has it really strong in the chart, their default setting is to be contrary and to uh, do the opposite of whatever is asked. There may be a maturing into that being tempered so that um, it becomes more life-giving, and it doesn't become, I don't know, destructive is a strong word, I think, but when we think of Uranus, a quality of it can feel destructive at times, because it is about restructuring things, and sometimes that can feel chaotic or unstabilizing in some ways. Okay, so um, that's important. Now, Uranus is also making this sextile to Neptune, and so that is exact this month, so it is important. Uh, it's a subtle aspect, though, so it's not something that you're going to have to deal with if you don't want to. I'm going to go forward in time a little bit here until Uranus gets back. So, uh, Uranus is only going to get back to 29 degrees this entire month. And also, we can see, sharing the chart again here if you're able to view it, we can also see that Uranus is at 29 degrees Taurus and Neptune is at 29 degrees Pisces. So they're really close to this exact sextile. And when we use a broader perspective and wider orbs of influence, Uranus sextile Saturn, or sorry, Uranus sextile Neptune, Saturn's there too. Uranus sextile Neptune has been happening, it's been approaching, coming into the foreground since 2023, and it'll really be there essentially until 2030. So this is a very long-term transit. These are very slow-moving planets. And so at this point, it's sort of like the water that we're swimming in. Uranus is this innovation, and Neptune is the unseen, the ethereal, altered states of consciousness. Neptune is this being moved by an experience, being in the flow of something. It is also a symbol of any type of altered state of consciousness, whether we're moved by something, or we're dreaming, or we are asleep and literally unconscious, or we're disassociated, or we are altered in a particular way via a certain substance, or doing breath work or physical work or anything like this. So Neptune is consciousness and all of the different ways that we experience consciousness. So we could say that this sextile from Uranus is an opportunity, if you so wish to engage with it, an opportunity to open and transform your consciousness in a way that creates more space or more opportunity, that uh, is an opportunity to change your consciousness so that you are moving more into what is true for you. I think that's the core of this aspect. And so, um, this is something that you may wish to engage with via setting an intention, doing some sort of magical or mystical practice, setting an intention to do something that you know will change your consciousness. By the way, I was thinking about this today. It feels relevant. I think it's so cool that we know through research and studies that psychotherapy, talk therapy, literally changes the brain as much as medication. Now, I think that's a bold statement, and that doesn't mean that one is better than the other or that they are equal to one another in a blanket statement in all forms. Everyone needs what they need, and that's going to be different for each person given their circumstances. And I think it's really, really cool that psychotherapy literally changes the brain structure. And so I think this is also a part of the way that I'm conceptualizing Uranus Neptune is that there are things that we can do that modify our consciousness. And I'm bringing in this example also because Saturn is here, a part of this equation. It's not very far off. It's just at 25 degrees of Pisces. So it's both making this conjunction to Neptune that we've talked about, that is also another long-term transit, and it's making a sextile to Uranus as well as like Neptune is. So Saturn brings in this quality of making things real and of doing something over time through one step at a time, and often small, seemingly insignificant steps over a long period of time, and then that day by day, weekly process, that weekly appointment or that monthly appointment or whatever it is that you're doing, that builds up momentum over time, and then once much time has passed, there is something that has been gained from that experience. So, this is available to you, this shifting your consciousness. Now, yeah, okay, pause. Let's see. What else do I want to say about this? Mm, yeah, I'll say also because of the place where Neptune and Uranus are, they're going to be gently in this, or maybe not so gently, in this sextile for the next couple of years through to 2028. So this is happening, it's exact to this month, but it's really within range over the next several years, and then it'll continue to dissipate after that. Other things that I want to say about this are that pause. Do I want to say anything more about that? Okay, so no, I think that's it. Okay, so um, another part of what's happening with Uranus this month is that both Mercury and Mars are opposing Uranus this month. And this is really important because Mercury is retrograding this month. And Mercury and Mars are having their new beginning cycle together. So this to me feels very alive, very dynamic. There is a strong theme of connecting into your voice, your authentic voice, what is true for you. Um, Mercury to Uranus can be these unexpected light bulb moments, these unexpected new ideas or new insights or a sense of clarity or realizing that you can do things radically different in a way that you never imagined that you could. And Mars is here too. So Mars is the planet of advocacy, fighting, advocating for, advocating against, fighting for something, expressing anger, dealing with anger or not dealing with anger. Mars is also, I like to say, our psychological defense system. So it's the immune system, and physically, it's the immune system, and it's also how we set up. Actually, how do I want to say this? I think there's, gosh, I'm really pausing because there is such an emphasis, there's such an awareness these days about the importance of setting boundaries, the importance of saying no. And that is a very external action. That is like there's already been all of this inner work to process what it means to say no, to disappoint someone, to create a limit or a boundary. And I want us to be thinking about Mars at an even deeper level, especially when we have this Mercury-Mars situation here going on. So, Mars is not just our boundaries or our no. Um, Oftentimes, when we're negotiating a boundary within our own selves, like figuring out if we feel okay with something or not, there's often a component of expectation, whether that's social expectation or um, not wanting to disappoint people or not wanting to disappoint or upset or burden someone. Insert whatever feeling you don't want someone to feel because that would, the feeling is that that would um, compromise the relationship in some way. And so a part of working with Mars is allowing ourselves to have our own unfiltered feeling experience, often involving a no, like an instinctual, like, I don't want that. Or, sometimes that looks like I don't want that once we actually get into it. And then allowing that to be shared and expressed to someone and allowing that person to have their own experience, and that we don't have to be damaged by someone else's experience, that our anger doesn't have to be wounding to someone else, and that their anger doesn't have to be wounding for us. Um, these are simple things to say, but not so simple to work through. And I want us to really be thinking about that too, about how we feel about our anger or aggression or assertiveness, and what it feels like for you to be angry or assertive or direct, or this could go into physical action as well, um, because there's something here with Uranus about connecting more into a sense of um, how do I want to say this, like it's almost like it makes me wonder if there's a bit of mm, these are some words that are coming to mind: uh, unmasking, unbinding, de-armoring. In somatic psychotherapy, there's this idea of body armor, which kind of sounds funny actually when I'm saying it in this moment. But it's this idea that we somatically, physically hold tension, or that we hold our body very unconsciously, that we hold our body in a certain way, and that that is connected into holding so that we can deal with our anxieties about how we feel about things. And so there's this phenomenon in somatic psychotherapy called de-armoring, where uh, you work with the body in order to release some of that armoring, and that allows the body to feel better. Frankly, it allows for more of a sense of vitality in the body, and it also allows for you to express yourself in a way that feels more unfiltered, uh, unfiltered or clear or authentic. Um, I think a part of what I'm feeling into this month is there is something there's something here where you're ready to release some sort of filter or masking or mm, social convention that just doesn't feel like a good fit for you anymore. And this might be, I don't know, this might be something uh, very seemingly subtle and minor in the way that it might not even involve changing what you say or how you say it. It might involve changing the way that you think, or um, it might be more explicit. I don't know. It might be telling someone what is really on your heart. These are some of the themes with this Mercury and Mars opposite Uranus. So again, this feels like really alive. It feels very passionate. It feels like there's a potential for being direct. Of course, this is happening for you, and it's also happening for other people as well. And so this may look like other people telling you what they think and other people expressing their no or their boundary to you. And so, if that happens for you, I encourage you to um, notice what your response is and what it's like for you. And I think a core component of Mercury and Mars opposite Uranus is okay, how can we have our own experience and um, be really true to ourselves, allow someone else to have their experience as well. And as long as there, um, as long as there is no um, harm or malfeasance, as long as no one is being harmed or taken advantage of in some way, you get to have your feeling. And oftentimes we can feel um, angry or agitated towards someone that we care very deeply for. And so I think that's also a component of this is okay, how do you healthfully allow your anger or assertiveness or just that Marsy kind of feeling function to move through you so that it doesn't get caught or stuck unnecessarily. Okay, so I do want to say this Mercury Mars is it's a couple months long in its transit period. So we start the beginning of November with Mercury just freshly in Sagittarius, 3 degrees of Sag at the beginning of the month. Mars is just at the tail end of Scorpio at 28 degrees of Scorpio. So they're both, this is an out of sign aspect, but they're both really closely opposite Uranus here at 0 degrees of Jupiter. And so it's already very alive. I would say this Mercury-Mars opposite Uranus started maybe around October 20th when they were both in Scorpio. It was like the gentle, soft beginning here. And it's more intense. I would say it's more at the peak at the beginning of November, the beginning of this month. And as we move forward in time, both Mercury and Mars will move into Sagittarius. Mars moves into Sagittarius the first week of November. And we're going to see that Mercury and Mars still super close together, moving forward in Sagittarius. Mercury will station retrograde. We're going to talk more about that in a second. So Mars continues forward. So Mars really peaks the first part of November, and then it starts to soften, whereas Mercury actually goes back towards Uranus. So the Mercury Uranus is more strong over the next couple of months. I would say through November into December. Actually, yeah, next month or so, I would say actually. So um, the Mercury opposite Uranus is still happening. It's still operative, even though it's a bit more gentle and more wrapping up until December 18th. So I think it's really great to keep in mind when we have these more um, longer term transits that are maybe happening over the course of a couple of months, because it gives us a longer time to feel into the energy and to feel what wants to come forward from you at this time. What is being asked of you, what is unfolding for you, and what is emerging. And it feels to me like there's something important that is emerging around your voice, your expression, and your psychological immune system. Okay, so there's one last thing that I'll say about this Uranus piece, and that is that Venus is going to be making an opposition to Uranus this month as well. So this is the last part of the month. So the first part of the month, we're really more fully in the Mercury-Mars opposite Uranus, and then that starts to, I mean, Mercury's still there, but Mars moves away, and then Venus gets closer and closer. So I would say from November 18th through December 11th, Venus is making an opposition to Uranus. And so this is when Venus gets to 15 degrees of Scorpio. It slowly moves forward. And I would say it's really close to the Uranus opposition the last week or two of November. And so here's another theme of relationships. So we're keeping in mind Venus is doing several things here. Venus is still connected into the Jupiter-Chiron-Pluto situation that we talked about earlier. And Venus is also making this opposition to Uranus. So lots of relational dynamics. And Venus opposite Uranus can symbolize this innovating our relational dynamic. It can be innovating our relationship experience with specific people, or it can be a desire to show up in a unique way. Uranus loves novelty, Uranus loves innovation, Uranus loves eclecticness. It loves to like just see what what is possible. I think also Uranus is a symbol of synchronicity and when things come together in such an unexpected way where there is a sense of awe and often delight. And so there may be this breakthrough around relational dynamics. And again, we can see here in the chart, if you're able to view it, if not, I will tell you that Mercury is really close here to Venus too. So this may be something about expressing something in relationships, connecting with your inner voice and radical transformation of your inner voice, how you think about things, how you think about yourself. Again, Venus, especially in Scorpio, can be so connected to how we feel about ourselves, our self concept. Sometimes this is called self esteem or self worth. It's this how we value ourselves and what we make of ourselves. So, I I like this cluster of this Mercury, Mars, and Venus making an opposition to Uranus. This feels like a lot of new, fresh energy that's coming forward. And again, if you're already having a Uranus transit, this is going to be even more alive for you, and there might be even more happening for you. Okay, so let's see. What else do we need to talk about here? Okay, yes. So let's talk about Mercury retrograde. So, Mercury retrograde is happening from November 9th through November 29th. And so Mercury stations retrograde at 6 degrees of Sagittarius, stations really close to Mars here, like we've discussed. And so it'll appear to move backward in the zodiac from 6 degrees of Sagittarius all the way back to 20 degrees of Scorpio. And it'll station direct, which means that the retrograde will be over on November 29th. And then it'll station direct really close to Venus. Um, so it is interesting that Mercury's retrograde begins with Mars and then ends with Venus. So there's also something relational, but it feels sort of physical and almost erotic in some way, because Mars Venus can often speak to the physicality of allure and love. And so there might be something that is being worked out for you there around your not just relationships, but also just sensuality in general. Um, okay, so what else do I want to tell you about Mercury retrograde? So as you might know, we have about 3 or 4 Mercury retrogrades each year. They all last about 3 weeks. So a couple times a year, we get this 3 week phase where there is a theme of reflecting back, of processing, of mentally, emotionally digesting things, and contemplating. It is Mercury, the Mercury function, which is our mind, our thought process, our intellect, introverted. So it is reflecting inward and backward on your experience. And this is happening no matter what we're doing. This is just the energy that we're swimming in, the energy that we're existing in. And we can engage with this energy by doing things that are introspective or reflective, or I find a more literal way that tends to feel good for me when there's a Mercury retrograde is to do some sort of uh, cleanup or decluttering. I tend to like decluttering, so that might not be for you, but it feels very I just find myself doing those kinds of projects where I'm going in and clearing something out or cleaning something out. And I think I like that during a Mercury retrograde process, because oftentimes I'm looking at things that I haven't looked at for a while. And some of those things are ready to um, be passed on. Some of them need to be fixed. Some I think, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about this. This is really cool, and I want to find a better spot for it or organize it or whatever. So there are a multitude of ways that you can engage with a Mercury retrograde process. Um, I feel like there's something else I wanted to say here about this. Hmm. So yeah, the whole month of November is this more contemplative sort of vibe energy. Um, Now, this retrograde is happening in Sagittarius and in Scorpio, which makes sense because often Mercury does not, or not often, always, always Mercury does not stray very far from the sun. And so the sun being in Scorpio and Sagittarius, this is where the retrograde is happening. Uh, so this is a introspection, a contemplation, a looking back into our conscious awareness around these themes that we talked about earlier related to where the sun is at this month. So this is the Sagittarius themes of exploring new possibilities, looking at what's possible, cultivating a feeling as best as we can of hope or optimism or wonder or curiosity. And then also the Scorpio themes, which are about emotional depth, experiences of intensity, our emotional bonding, and what a deep bond means for you, what it looks like for you, these kinds of things. Sometimes also Mercury retrograde in Scorpio can denote where we're processing uh, processing how we feel or think about shared assets and resources. That can sometimes be a Scorpio theme. Um, Literal shared assets or resources, or uh, experiences of interdependence, how we rely on other people, whether that is physical, mental, or emotional, and how we allow others to rely on us, how we give and receive support, and the feelings around that. Now, also really important to this is Mercury's conjunction with Mars. And so, um, because of the retrograde process, Mercury is actually going to make 3 conjunctions with Mars. And so uh, there is, well, actually, do I want to say that? So there's 3 peaks of the conjunction. So the first peak is in October, or was in October. We're already really in it, where Mercury and Mars are close together here in Sagittarius. And then um, as we move forward in November, there's a different flavor where Mercury and Mars are still what I would consider conjunct because they have not moved on. They're going to conjunct again in Capricorn. So the conjunction is still there, it's still active, but it's Mercury in Scorpio. So it has this different theme. There's this exploring the depths. And then as we move forward in time, there will be another conjunction of Mercury and Mars way far in time in January of 2026. So we'll talk more about that once we get there. But I'm saying that to you and I'm emphasizing this. Let's go back into January. Yeah, I'm emphasizing this because whenever we have a conjunction, it is a new moon phase of the planets involved. And so Mercury and Mars are having this long-term ongoing conjunction, which represents a new beginning and a seeding of new things that will um, continue to grow and evolve over the next year or so. Um, and it's these themes that we've talked about thus far, these themes of your voice, your communication, how you think about things, the things that you think about and how you think about them, Mercury, and then your anger, aggression, boundaries, your no, your advocation, your ability to fight for something, to advocate for things. And Mars can also even be connected into our physical health or our muscular health. So there's something that is beginning anew here. Long term, from September of 2025 to February of 2026, there's this new emerging that's happening. And because of the Mercury retrograde, it is the beginning is a long one. So I encourage you to just notice what you're thinking about, notice where these Mars things are coming up, where you're feeling like a no or pushing against or an agitation or anything like this. These are things that are important, and there is a call to contemplate, especially November to contemplate these things. Okay, so lastly but not leastly, let's talk about the full moon and the new moon. Okay, so first we have our full moon in Taurus, which is happening November 5th at 5:19 a.m. Pacific time. And so this puts us with a full moon at 13 degrees of Taurus. Full moons are a time of culmination, of things becoming more visible, of the subconscious or the unconscious starting to be seen in little glimmers and little ways. And when this is happening with a full moon in Taurus, the axis of Taurus and Scorpio are alive and very present. Taurus and Scorpio are connected to experiences of interdependence, power, how we feel powerful, what we do with our power, and the relationship between physical accumulation, physical stability, which tends to be more Taurian, and emotional accumulation, emotional stability, which tends to be more Scorpio. This is a fixed energy as well, and so there's also something here around a culmination of what you've been building, what you've been developing. So this is the first part of the month, the first week of the month, and so I think this is really a beautiful moment. It's happening on Wednesday, so a day Wednesday, but the lunations tend to span over the course of several days. So I think this is a really beautiful time to um, celebrate what it is that you've been working towards and what you've been committed to. And oftentimes, a full moon will reveal it will get some feedback on how our efforts have been received by the universe, by psyche, by others, etc. It's often a time of revealing. And the more that we can, um, I think, actually, what do I want to say here? I think Taurus, one of its core themes is self-reliance, whereas Scorpio is about actually relying on other people. And so I think this really depends on your makeup and what feels natural for you and what feels true for you. And there might be something that uh, emerges here for you around your experiences of self reliance versus relying on other people and um, might be a revealing of how things are going. It might be a revealing of how you want to have a different kind of experience. I don't know, but that just feels really vital for me when I'm looking at this. Okay, so this is the sense of culmination this month, the full moon, and then we have the new moon in Scorpio, and so new moons are like the name, this new beginning, the initiation process, the initiating of something new. This is happening November 19th at 10:47 p.m. Pacific time. Okay. And look at this really sweet new moon in Scorpio uh, with Venus and Mercury retrograde also in Scorpio. Now, new moons are this time of the unseen, of everything being pulled inward. It is literally the most dark outside when we have the new moon. And it's also this time of connecting in with yourself, introspecting, and seeing what is there. The new moon is not when we see the new thing, it's when the new thing is being planted, when those little tiny seedlings are coming, are being planted into the soil. I guess not even seedlings, the new seeds. And so there's something new here around your interconnectedness, your intimate bonding, your emotional feelings. Scorpio is our innermost world, our innermost feelings, and the richness that we can connect into there. So there is something new that is coming forward for you. And it's incredibly connected into Venus, relationships, beauty, aesthetics, our self concept, as well as Mercury, the things that we're thinking about, the things that we're contemplating, the things that are on your mind most. So, this feels like an incredibly rich and meaningful new moon in Scorpio. I think there's a lot to be gained, especially when we're doing deep introspection and allowing ourselves space to just go wherever psyche is leading us. There's a lot to explore there. Okay, so that is the astrology. I'm going to pull some cards for you here. And I'm actually, so something a little different today. I'm going to pull um, these from the archetype deck that I have. So this is the archetypes deck by Kim Kranz, and I hope you like it. Okay, so if you're not already, I invite you to get into a comfortable place where you feel relaxed. You may wish to envision yourself encircled in a beautiful sphere of light, feeling your seat on the ground, feeling at ease with where you are. A little Uranian moment there. Hope that wasn't too disruptive. And so anything that is happening for you here. Everything that happens here carries meaning. Whatever strikes you, whatever uh, comes into your space or your awareness. You may wish to connect in with your heart space at the center of your chest. Maybe there is a question or a wondering or an inquiry here. And if you like, you may wish to pick a number between 1 and 3, and that card will be special for you. Okay. So these are archetype cards, and they're meant to be interpreted both universally and personally. So I'm going to share the imagery with you and then some thoughts, and I want you to notice just what strikes you, what it means to you. So the first card is the Starborn, and it has this image of an egg that looks like it's cracking open, like the whatever it is that's in the egg is about to be born. It's just starting to hatch. And then there is this watercolor kaleidoscope of different colors, lots of blues and greens. This is the third card in the system. And so I wonder what the image or just that idea, the star born, it's sort of an interesting idea, what that might mean for you. I'm going to read from the book here, which she says. When I see this card, it feels like, oh, just I'm thinking of the new moon. It feels very alive. It feels like lots of potential and sort of like an excitement of what's going to be born here. Okay, so the star born. The star born is a symbol of the divine child, the star child, the destined, an elusive yet radiant aspect of the self. The starborn archetype points to the cosmic spark of light that arrives with each being at birth. Wow. The moment the new burn crowns, the royal stars above are said to constellate in a unique shape that maps our path in the world. This idea of destiny is controversial, yet the starborn naturally feels a sense of destiny, sense of destination and purpose, aiming itself towards a future that is beyond the mundane. When this card appears, traveling back to your birth story for clues and insight might be interesting. What did you desire when you were young? Practice seeing your life from a mythic point of view rather than a series of logistics. Read the story of the three fates and envision yourself born under the stars within a unique destiny. Mm. Doesn't that sound like astrology to you? Like the astrology birth chart? I'm very curious how this resonates with you. And when I feel into, so we'll look at the other cards too, but when I feel into this, I'm really struck by the seeing your life from a mythic point of view. And I'm wondering if this is a part of the the Mercury-Mars Uranus, this um, and even the Jupiter aspects that we talked about, this reframing your life and the story that you tell about your life, and that you get to choose that narrative if you wish, um, and finding a sense of deeper meaning. Of course, astrology can help with that. I think also being called to certain myths or stories, whether that is a movie or a mythological motif, anything like that might be interesting for you. So I'm really excited for you with this. And of course, I also want to honor whatever it is that strikes you about this archetype as well, something that maybe connects in with you more personally. Okay, so second card is, let's see, let me find this one. Okay, so second card is called, oh, hang on, bear with me here. I'm trying to find the page. Okay. So second card is called the riddle. And the image is this, I feel like there's a name for this symbol, but I can't quite remember. It's sort of like this triple knotted sort of symbol, and it looks like it's scaly, and there's these stars in the middle, and there's also different hands that are reaching for the symbol. Kim Cran says the riddle is a symbol of the puzzle, the question, the mystery. When the riddle is present, one must stop searching for the right answer. It cannot be found and ultimately is not important. Rather, there must be a shift from the literal to the metaphorical, from logic to mythic. You are thinking too small and literally about the situation. The riddle card appears when the energy is deep and mysterious, like the elusive wisdom of a Zen koan. Focusing harder won't do it. Neither will increased effort. Time, surrender, and humor are your only allies. What feels like the most pressing dilemma won't reveal its deeper wisdom for a long time. Eventually, you'll learn a profound lesson from the riddle. For now, get comfortable with the limitations of your intellect and the reality of not knowing. It may, in fact, be the only reality there is. Ooh, interesting. Okay. So I'm curious how this sits with you. And this it's very interesting. This feels connected to the Starborn in the mythological quality. And when I'm looking at this card, it's the shape is actually one of those shapes where it's like continuous and there's no end and it just keeps looping back in on itself. And so I'm really feeling into the quality of Neptune when I'm looking at this like gentle holding, this gentle surrender, but also allowing things to flow at the same time. And um, gosh, this card just feels like a call um, to soften and to stay curious, but to also, uh, gosh, one of the things that really strikes me is that there is no one answer. There is no one way. It's not about finding an answer. It's about holding the space for whatever the experience is, and that the experience might be paradoxical, might not make sense, and that there is something uh, transformational about holding that space and continuing to hold and contemplate the riddle. Okay, so very interesting. So curious how that sits with you. So the next card is, oh, and so this is card number 53, if you're paying attention to numbers, if that's important to you. Okay, so the next card is the Eternal Child. And this card has, it almost looks like a sun in the center, and then there's a rainbow shape around that, and then more hands that are sort of look like they're evaluating something. Okay, so the Eternal Child, this is card number 4 in the deck. She says, the eternal child is the inner child, the child of joy. The eternal child is connected to the timeless, ageless, and infinite aspects of life. It is radiant and fearless and seeks joy above all else at any cost. It struggles being bound to an aging body with physical limitations in a world that demands attention to detail and logistics. The eternal child wants to nix all rules and responsibilities and go beyond what others say is possible. It wants to return, with plenty of friends, to the land of the free, where divine wine and creativity pour from the earth and sky. We all want to sip from the well of eternal youth, and this makes the eternal child naturally popular, perhaps even famous. The eternal child glimmers. It reminds us of what is possible, what is magical about the preciousness of life. I'm very curious about this one and how that sits with you, or what comes forward for you there. I think there are a couple ways that we could take this. Uh, I'm struck by the theme of the inner child, and that to me connects in with Chiron and what we talked about Chiron and how your healing journey may involve tending to your experience of your inner child. And when I say inner child, I'm talking about um, the experiences that you remember, but also the ones that you have no conscious memory of, and even the ones that are maybe nonverbal or pre-verbal. So that the the structure of our psyche that is rooted in our childhood experiences, that the psychic structure that is the inner child, and how that informs the way that we move through the world. And yeah, I do wonder if this represents tending to that inner child. Um, Sometimes that can be a returning or a remembering. Sometimes that can be um, giving that inner child space to experience. I know one practice that I really like is uh, imagining myself at a particular age that feels relevant, and just imagining being with that part of myself, like imagining it in an embodied form, and sitting with it, playing with her, and being with her in the way that she needs. And sometimes it's more literal. Sometimes it's doing the things that we need to do to take care of ourselves that is somehow connected to childhood experiences. I think another way to look at this could be shadow work around what Jung called the puer or the puella complex. And by that, I think sometimes that's also called like the Peter Pan or um, this this refusal to embody maturity, like an aversion to maturity or elderness or the crone eras of life. And I don't know. This, I think it really depends on what your experience of the eternal child or the inner child is. Um, it does make me wonder about connecting in with childhood states, but from a place of uh, being farther along in our development just naturally by being um, adult humans. So these are the cards that I have for you. And when I'm looking at this as a whole spread, it feels like something is being born, and maybe it's like it's very unknown. So both the egg not being fully hatched and then the riddle being here. There's encouragement to sit with the unknown, and there's encouragement to know that something is happening, but you don't always have to know exactly what is happening. And I say that to you as well as to myself. And then there is the child here. So there is something being born. There's something that's happening. And I think some of the encouragement here is that holding and meditating on what it is that you're experiencing and really creating space for you to not know. All right. That is your astrology for this month of November. Thank you so very much for being here with me. It's such an honor to be with you. And I so appreciate you, so appreciate all of your messages and comments and emails. And it means so much to me to hear how you're experiencing the astrology, how you're experiencing what is coming through in this space. And if you want to find out more about me and my work, you can find me on my website, theastropsyche.com, and I'll see you soon. Okay, take good care.